Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Celebrity Challenge, and today we have The Beauty and the Beast. Is it the? It's just Beauty and the Beast. Sorry, no the. Beauty and the Beast from 1991. It is an hour and 29 minutes long. It is part of the Disney animation renaissance that began in 1989 with The Little Mermaid. After a somewhat waning performance in their animated areas, but this is one of the good ones. Yeah, there's a number of story problems with all the old Disney Renaissance stories. Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. They're all fairly women making really odd decisions, despite how intelligent or how against their interest things are. Ariel, choosing to give up her voice in order to be with a pretty boy she met and saw for a whole 5 minutes and decides to fall in love. But that's what teenagers do. Here, Belle is also, I'm guessing, a teenager or a young adult woman who everybody considers weird because she's educated. She can read, unlike most everybody else. She has her pick of books in the local library or bookstore or whatever it is. That this guy has a whole stockpile of books, and yeah, because nobody else seems to be grabbing them. Most women just seek out a man, and then they live their life having babies and cooking food. And Belle isn't easily taken in by, well, not taken in. It's a choice that people can make. It's not a problem. It's something that Belle's not interested in. She wants wild, not wild, but adventures outside her little town, her little provincial town, and nothing against the people there, although they seem to have a problem with her just being weird about liking adventure and princes and not just growing old and dying in a small town. She wants something a little bit more, and yes, I guess that's weird for some people. Of course, as we all know the story, I'm not really spoiling anything. If you haven't seen this movie yet, well, odds are you never intended to, so there's no probably reason why you'd be watching this. So yeah, her dad makes a wrong turn on the way to the fair, and he's an inventor, um, and he gets taken in by the beast, this monstrous beast. Well, we get the story, by the way, ahead of time before we meet any of the cast. Excuse me. Um, so I'm going to jump back to the beginning here real quick. Sorry. Um, he's the Beast is a snobby young kid. We're assuming he's a kid or at least a teenager at the point that he's cursed. Where his family is, I have no idea. Um, he seems to be living alone in a giant castle, just full of himself and thinking he's the greatest thing ever. Um, Old woman comes to the door and says, "Hey, I'm cold. Here's a rose in exchange for letting me stay in this massive castle for the night to get out of the weather." And he's like, "Screw you, lady. I'm not giving out free rides to anybody." And she's just like, he sees how ugly she is. Apparently, that as if she was. I mean, I imagine that if she was gorgeous, which she reveals herself to be after he spurns her, he would have said, "Yeah, come on in, baby." So yeah, the impetus of his curse of becoming a beast is that he didn't let her in because she was ugly, an old crone, and he begs her that, oh hey, please, if she reveals herself to be this beautiful, just glorious woman, otherworldly type woman. He's like, "Oh, come on in, please, please. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn you away." Her curse is to make him into a monster that nobody would dare to be around, and he's internally a monster, not just for being a snob and a jerk to everybody and full of himself, but also because when he becomes a beast, he can really get scary and overbearing and growly and stuff like that. So he's very beastly in that sense. But what I do not get, in order to teach, this guy a lesson, she cursed not just him, but the entire castle and everyone within it, and turned them into inanimate objects that are now animate. this guy gets turned into a candlestick, a little candelabra thing. Another guy gets turned into a clock. A woman, a maid, Babette, gets turned into a feather duster. Oh, the woman who's in charge of the kitchen, Mrs. Potts, she gets turned into a teapot, ironically, and her son, a small child who is innocent of all of this, gets turned into a broken teacup. His name's Chip. Yes, apparently this witch or whatever it is has a sense of irony and humor, except when she turns a child into a broken teacup. Who's learning a lesson here? I mean, were they all like just deserving of this because they allowed him to be a jerk? No, they were servants to a prince who was a a-hole to everybody. To them, more than likely, and only after they took care of him, even when they were still turned into pots and pans and clocks and coat hangers and such, that they become friends over a series of years. And by the way, he has to, find true love somebody, actually love someone, and have them love him by the time he's 21. Whew, some of us can't get that crap together by twice that age, and he's going to do it when he's a monster, and after kidnapping her, of course, because in order, well, not kidnapping her, but kidnapping her dad, and then she takes his place in order to, she makes a promise she'll live with him there forever if she just lets her father go. When dad goes to town, and they all think he's crazy because he's an inventor and he's science and doing all sorts of things that everybody doesn't understand because they're not so bright. And of course, the person who is at the head of the get rid of the crazy guy thing, who actually has a hot daughter that he wants to marry, is Gaston. Gaston is this handsome, rugged, and completely full of himself. The only thing more beautiful than Belle is him in his eyes. And yeah, so he's, the characters are actually all really great. Gaston is just id animated. He's this great bad guy. He's a horrible person. But it's still humorous in his smarminess, his just jerkiness. And if you've ever gone to like Disney World and Magic Kingdom, and there's a guy, Gaston is there, and if you run into him, he is a complete jerk to you, even as he's taking pictures with you. It's awesome. He's actually really, the guys who do that are really, really good. I highly recommend running and talking to Gaston when you get a chance, even if you don't want a picture, just walk up to him. It helps you get a feeling for what it's like to be around this guy in this movie. And then LeFou, his suck up sidekick, his comic relief. Everybody is pretty well realized in this. It's not a complicated film. It's not not gonna some insight here. It's yes, beauty is found from within. That's the whole point. It makes sense. But what's really weird is that Bella's never really had a problem with that. Gaston wanted her. He wanted to marry her just because he wanted her, and it would only make him look even better to have a hot wife who gives him babies and other rugged young boys to be just like him. She wasn't taken in by his good looks. All the other girls are fawning all over him in town. But she's a weird one who likes books and probably smart guys, and probably guys that are not all stuck up. But she falls for the monstrous looking guy who's super mean, selfish, immature, emotionally immature, and it kind of, I guess, she kind of enjoys the idea that they butt heads constantly and yell at each other, and then suddenly he's nice. This takes place, I'm guessing, over a few months, because the weather changes and it goes into winter time. And we watched, by the way, the sequels and the holiday special for Beauty and the Beast, which takes place during the time in which she was captive. So there's some sort of Christmas celebration stuck in there. It's like a midquel. We've talked about this in previous episodes. You'll have to look it up. But yeah, my friends joke that it's a Stockholm Syndrome movie where she's just like held captive long enough that she goes, "Oh yeah, I really like this guy." But and I don't think this is the kind of movie that really. If you're stuck in one place all the time and the only other people in the place are pots and pans and candlesticks and cupboards and stuff, Joanne Worley as a wardrobe, and by the way, Angela Lansbury as Mrs. Potts, Jerry Orbach. By the way, it took me the longest time. I know who Jerry Orbach is. I don't really watch Law and Order, but if you watch Law and Order, and he's Lumiere, he's the candlestick guy. If you get a chance, and you don't know who Jerry Orbach is, but you've watched enough Law and Order, Google Jerry Orbach, look at his face, and match that up to Lumiere, who sings "Be Our Guest." The two characters do not match up whatsoever, but it's a wonderful contrast. And yeah. By the way, I know I'm jumping all around here, but the music. There's a reason why this movie got nominated for Best Picture in the year it was released. It didn't win. It didn't win, but it was a first for an animated feature to get nominated for Best Picture. The music obviously is a big component of that. The animation is good. It's obviously it's part of that Disney Renaissance era type animation. It's somewhat motion capture because there's a lot of times they spent some time matching Belle to an actual physical person moving around, and for me it doesn't work right all the time, but it's still gorgeous. It's still tons better than the direct DVD versions, like the Christmas one I talked about. Either way, there's some just great animated moments that actually look better sometimes when they're still. There's moments where the Beast gets pulled up in anger, and if you freeze it at that point, it's a great shot. The transformation of Beast into the Prince is also a great scene. It moves, but there's moments where it just sort of captures and then releases, and it's really well done. Same thing with Belle, reaction shots to Beast being monstrous, but it's really the animation that takes place during the musical sequences, especially Be Our Guest. I think there was a 3D animated element to the ballroom dancing scene in Tale as Old as Time, Beauty and the Beast, sung by Angela Lansbury. In the credits, though, it's sung by Celine Dion and Peabo Bryson. So there's a little trivia for you. But yeah, the animation's great. The music is, I forgot just how it's one great song after another. Even the introduction of, hey, Belle's so weird. Hey, Belle's so weird. She's reading books, and she's like, I want to get out of this provincial town. That's a whole... That's the lead characters. That's her, Gaston. It's the townsfolk. So I understand why this makes a great stage play. It is, I think, the music was written as if it could be a stage play, and it builds all these threads to create a humongous finish toward the end, which is great. Same thing with Be Our Guest, does so well with Jerry Orbach, and also David Ogden Stiers, Charles from MASH, plays Cogsworth. And there's also so many other little vocal pieces throughout Be Our Guest that just build up to a wonderful, wonderful, just amazing piece of music. Even the so-so songs are still better than most songs in other films. So yeah, it's worth revisiting whenever you get a chance. I forgot how much I like this. I mean, it's not my favorite Disney animated feature. I don't know what it is anymore because there's so many. Little Mermaid has been probably the longest one because it was the first. Also like Redheads, but that's a whole other thing. Now that I'm much older, it doesn't make a whole lot more sense for me to say that out loud. So, yeah, there's so many different elements into choosing my favorite Disney but they're all so great, and they're on Disney Plus. So hey, how can you go wrong? Go visit this. We haven't watched the live action one yet. That will hopefully show up at some point. But let's pick tomorrow's episode, and maybe we'll find it. Maybe it'll show up.
38.
Oh, went the other direction. If we gone up one, we would have got the other Beauty and the Beast. But number 38, I think we already seen this, haven't we? You know what? There's a lot of these things, and this might be a duplicate. I don't know, because some of these things are just weirdly titled. So if it turns out that we've already seen this, we'll come back. I'll come back in a second and we'll check again. But otherwise, we're going to be watching Back to the Titanic. Yes, yet another Titanic documentary. So let's check that out. Back to Titanic on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and if not, I'll see you in a second.